Hello there, my name's Scott and today I'm going to be doing a review on the Pipeline Pro, which I've received from www.pipelinestore.co.uk. That's pipeline-store.co.uk. Before I start though, I must point out I did receive it free of charge for the purpose of conducting a review, but my opinion of the product remains true, honest and accurate as always. Okay, let's go straight ahead and show this in the tube. Okay, so the Pipeline Pro is going to come in a case like this to help protect it when it's in transit. And inside the case you're going to get the actual Pipeline Pro and a pretty informative instruction manual. Okay, so here I have the Pipeline Pro, which is a very high quality variable wattage device which has a range of 5 watts up to 20 watts with a 5 amp limit. And it's got an absolute ton of built-in settings and customization options, so you can sort of play around with it for hours on end. It's made in Germany by a manufacturer, I'm not too sure how you pronounce the name, it's either Dicodes or Dicodes. Like I said, it's a very high quality device, it's got a nice weight to it. The way the screen's been implemented, very neat and tidy, excellent quality threading, the finish is perfect as well. Everything about it just sort of oozes class, it really is a very nice device. It's available in 2 different sizes, either an 18500 version or an 18650 version. This is the 18500. It's 22mm in diameter and from end to end it's 95mm. So it's a nice sort of small compact size. And I think the size for me personally is pretty much perfect. I think the 18650, which would obviously add on a bit of extra length, for me personally would be a little bit sort of on the long side, so the 18500 version is definitely a good choice for me. Now there's quite a lot to go through with regards to the menu and the sort of customization options, so what I'll do is speed things along and give you a very quick guided tour around the outside and then dive straight into the menu system. Okay, so starting on the bottom you're going to find the battery end cap, and as you can see on there you have some engravings saying made in Germany by either Dicodes or Dicodes, not too sure how it's pronounced. And in the middle you've got a ventilation hole, so if you was very unlucky and had a battery that was venting gases, those gases can escape. Just above the battery end cap you're going to find a bit of engraving on the body saying Pipeline Pro. Some more engraving on the reverse side with a sort of a plus and minus sign. And just above that also another little bit of engraving where it just says Pipeline. Towards the top of the body you're going to find the activation button. This is what you're going to press and hold down to obviously fire up your atomizer, and it's also going to be used for accessing and going through the menu system. It's a really nice button to use, nice and comfortable, it's metal, and as you can see there it's got a really nice sort of low profile. On the opposite side you're going to find the LED screen, and this is a very high quality screen, nice and vibrant, very easy to read, and the way it's actually been installed into the main body just seems to be very sort of professionally done. And if you don't like the brightness of the screen, you can actually go into the customization options and adjust that to make it either dimmer or brighter. And then finally on top you're going to find a 510 atomizer connection, a little bit of engraving for your serial number. The actual end cap itself is completely flat, which is a good thing for me because I prefer my flat end caps. And you also have plenty of air channels cut out, so if you're going to use something like a cartomizer tank for example, then you're always going to get plenty of airflow. Now up until this point it's been pretty positive, but this is where it goes downhill ever so slightly, and it is just slightly downhill, and it's to do with this 510 connector, or more to do with the actual center pin, because no matter what atomizer I put on here I'm always left with a very slight gap, and I will show you a few examples as I'm talking here. Now the size of the gap will vary from one atomizer to another, but like I said, every atomizer that I've tried, a gap is always present unfortunately, and I can't stand having gaps, so it's really frustrating to have such a nice quality device that sort of ticks all the boxes, got a completely flat top, and you can't screw your atomizer all the way down to get it nice and sort of sitting flush. So I think it definitely needs to have either a manually adjustable center pin or possibly a sprung-loaded center pin. Now with regards to assembling the Pipeline Pro, there's not a great deal to show you really because it's only made up of 2 parts, and that is the battery end cap and then the main device. For batteries you're going to need to use a high drain battery, and my preferred choice are the AWIMRs, And to get it all assembled, all you need to do is insert the battery positive ending first, and then take the end cap and screw it on, and then just take whatever atomizer you're going to use and whack that on the top, and you're good to go. Now the Pipeline Pro has lots of built-in protection. It's got a ton of different sort of menu settings and customization options. And I'd say the chances of me forgetting to mention something or leaving something out is probably quite high, to be quite honest, because there's so much to go through. So just in case that happens, what I'm going to do now is put up a quick title with some information so you can pause the video, read through it, just in case I happen to do a faux pas and leave it out. Okay, so what I'm going to do now then is go through the menu system, and the way this works is you're going to tap the button once to bring up the menu. Further taps will then allow you to scroll through the different menu options. Once you're on the option that you want to use, you're just going to sort of pause for a second or two. It will then enter the sub menu, and then from there further taps will allow you to make your changes. Once you've made your changes, all you need to do is leave it alone for a second or two, and it will automatically store them. Okay, so the first menu system is going to be for the power up. So you're just going to tap it once, and then from there further taps will allow you to increase the wattage from 5 watts up to 20 watts, going up in 0.5 increments. The second option is quite simply the opposite, so that's going to be your power down. So you're just going to go to PD, and then from there you can decrease the wattage again from 5 watts to 20 watts in 0.5 increments. The third option will tell you the resistance of your atomizer or the resistance of the coil, and so I'm using a scrape here, and it's telling me my resistance is 1.5 ohms. Now the fourth option is going to tell you how much battery life you have left, but it does this in sort of two ways. One is going to show you it in its sort of regular state, and the other one is going to show you how much battery life you have left remaining when under load. So if I go into the fourth option, it's going to tell me that my battery life is 3.6 volts. Now if I fire up the atomizer and now press it again, it's going to tell me I have 3.3 volts, or 3.2 volts should I say, and that's because that is the remaining charge of the battery when under load. I think that's correct anyway. Now the fifth option is for setting the cut-off point of your battery to prevent it from discharging below its sort of recommended level. Now different batteries have different sort of technical specs. I believe with the AWIMRs you can actually take them as low as 2.5 volts, but I prefer to err on the side of caution and have it a little bit higher than that. So to enter the menu system, just going to go to the fifth option, wait a second, and then from there you can change it from 2.5 volts up to 3.5 volts, and I've been sticking to around 3 volts. Now the sixth menu option is to enable or disable the heat protection, and you also have 10 different levels of heat protection which are adjustable in a different menu setting. Now according to the manual, the idea of the heat protection is to preserve the flavour of your e-liquid when vaping at higher wattages. I've played around with these settings quite a bit, and I can't honestly say that I've noticed any difference whatsoever. However, that could be because I only really vape at around sort of 12 watts, and it's more designed for people who are vaping at say 20 watts for example. However, if you do want to enable or disable it, you just need to go into the sixth menu option, wait a second, and then you can either set it to 00 or 01. 00 is disabled and 01 is enabled. The seventh option very simply allows you to shut the device down. So you're just going to go into the seventh option, wait a second, bring up the two little dots and then wait, and that's it, it's now shut down. So I can press the button, nothing's going to fire up, and the menu won't activate either. If you want to turn it back on, then you need to tap the button quickly 5 times. And that's it, it's now back on. Okay, so that was the main menu covered, but you also have an extended functions menu where you can sort of do a little bit of customization. And to enter the extended functions menu, you're going to go to the 8th menu item, wait a second, and then press the button again, and one more time, and that's it, you're now in the extended functions. Now the first option in the extended functions menu allows you to adjust the brightness of the display. 1 is the darkest setting and 5 is the brightest setting. So you just need to enter that menu, wait a second, and then from there you can just click through to find your desired level. The second option is for your heat protection control settings, and like I said earlier, you have 10 different levels to choose from. So once you've got it enabled, go into the second option, wait a second, and then from there you can increase it from 1 to 10. The third option allows you to adjust the automatic shut-off time, and you can do this anywhere from 1 minute up to 90 minutes. So say for example you got it set to 90 minutes. After 90 minutes the device will automatically shut down. So you just need to go into the third menu option, wait a second, and then from there you can adjust it from 1 minute up to 90 minutes. Now the fourth menu item lets you decide how many times you want to tap the button to turn the Pipeline Pro back on after it's gone past its automatic shut off, and you can choose from 0 up to 5 clicks. Now if you have it set to 0, which is how I've been using it, this means that even if it has gone past its automatic shut off, as soon as you press the button, that's it, bam, you're vaping again. But obviously if you prefer to have a couple of clicks or 5 clicks, you can do as well. So you just need to go into the fourth option, wait a second, and then from there you can choose between 0 and 5. But it's probably worth pointing out that if you manually turn the Pipeline Pro off, like via the menu system, then it'll always take 5 clicks to turn back on. This only actually applies if you go past the automatic shut-off point. The fifth option allows you to decide how many times you want to press the button to bring up the menu. Now I have it set to 1, so as soon as I tap the button, the menu appears straight away. But if you prefer to have 2 taps or 3 taps or 4 taps or even 5 taps, then you can do so. So you just need to go into the fifth option, wait a second, and then from there you can choose between 1 and 5. Now the sixth option allows you to decide how long you want the menu to appear on screen for. 1 is the shortest setting and 3 is the longest setting. So you just need to go into the sixth option, wait a second, and then from there you can change it from 1 to 3. The seventh option allows you to decide if you want to have error messages displayed on the screen or not. Obviously it's always worth having this enabled in my opinion, but obviously if you don't want those to appear, then you can disable them. So you just need to go into the seventh option, wait a second, and from there you can do 00 or 01. 00 is disabled and 01 is enabled. Now like I said earlier in the video, the Pipeline Pro has a range of 5 watts up to 20 watts, which goes up in 0.5 increments. But if you'd rather just go 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, etc, etc, you can actually disable the 0.5. And to do that, you just need to go into the 8th menu item, wait a second, and then select it to either 00 for disabled or 01 for enabled. And the last option in the extended functions menu allows you to reset everything back to factory default. So if you feel like you've mucked everything up, just want to set it back to how you received it, just go into the 9th menu option, wait a second, and then press it to 01, and it will then reset. Now the Pipeline Pro will also give you information on screen if it detects something wrong. So say for example, you've got a short circuit or your battery's turned nuclear, for example, and it will be in the form of an E number. So it will say E1, E2, E3, E4, etc, etc. And if you go into the manual, it does give you a list of what all those error codes mean. Okay, so that was the Pipeline Pro. Let's go ahead, see what it vapes like. Okay, so that was the Pipeline Pro, and what I'll do now is go ahead and show in action. So I'm going to be using it with a Scrape, which is a silica-based rebuildable atomizer. I'm using a microcoil, and the resistance of the coil, according to the Pipeline Pro, is 1.5 ohms, and the tank has been filled up with some 18 milligram strength tobacco flavoured e-liquid, and it's just a PG-based e-liquid. And I've currently got the Pipeline Pro set at 12 watts. And as you can see, it produces plenty of vapour, but obviously just bear in mind that the amount of vapour you're going to get will be down to obviously what sort of atomizer you're using, type of e-liquid, and also down to what sort of wattage setting you're using on the Pipeline Pro as well. Now, for any sort of complete beginners who have never heard of variable wattage, variable voltage, etc., etc., I'll try and give you a very brief and simple explanation. So, first of all, you have atomizers, and they come in different resistances. Higher resistances are better suited to higher voltages. Lower resistances are better suited to the lower voltages, which is what their lower resistance atomizers are primarily designed for. People these days don't tend to follow that rule because they still have low resistance atomizers but vapor at higher voltages, but that was the theory behind it when they very first came out. Now, if I had a variable voltage device, say this was just variable voltage, and I currently had it set to say 5 volts, and I was using a high resistance atomizer, that's going to give me a really nice vape, plenty of vapor production, flavour throw hit, nice warm vapor, etc., etc. But let's just say then that I fancied a bit of a change, and then swap the atomizer over for a low resistance atomizer. And if I didn't change that voltage, very quickly the atomizer is going to start tasting burnt. You could easily pop the coil straight away, and it just won't be a very sort of nice vaping experience. So basically what I'd have to do is manually adjust the voltage to suit the resistance of the atomizer. Now with variable wattage though, it will always maintain that same power output, so it's going to actually adjust the voltage for you. So I could basically just play around with the settings, find a nice vape, for example 12 watts seems to be hitting the spot for me. And it doesn't matter what resistance atomizer I put on there, because it's automatically going to recognise the change in resistance and then automatically adjust the voltage to ensure that I still get that same 12 watt power output. So basically with variable voltage devices, you have to manually change the voltage to suit the resistance of the atomizer. With variable wattage devices, it does all the hard work for you basically. I'm going to start off talking about the build quality. This is a extremely well made electronic mod. It's probably the best one I've ever come across. I mean, like the other one I sort of put in a top tier would be the Pro Vary, which isn't a variable wattage device, it is just a variable voltage. But it's one of those devices that for me is extremely well made, it's extremely reliable as well. I've still got my one from when it very first came out. Was it 3 years ago, something like that, maybe even a little bit longer, and it still works just as good as the day when I first got it. Obviously I haven't used it that much over the last, say, year or so, but the first year and a half, you know, it was pretty much the only thing I ever really used as my own sort of personal setup. And you know, this is definitely in that same category. You can tell the difference in quality between this and something like another thing that I rate really highly, the e-cig Z-Max. I think that's an excellent device for the price, and that rhymes. But you can really tell the difference in quality between this and something like the e-cig Z-Max, but then you are paying almost 3 times the price for the Pipeline Pro compared to the e-cig Z-Max. But like I said, the build quality wise, I mean, like, there's not a lot of parts to actually screw together. It's only the battery end cap, but you can tell the quality of the threading is excellent. It's extremely smooth. There's no sound to it whatsoever. You know, it's just a very well machined device. The finish is excellent. The way that the screen has been, you know, built into the body, it looks really sort of neat and tidy. And when I look at it, the sort of thing that it reminds me of is, let's just say, for example, something like the Sony shop or the Sony store, whatever it's called, was going to start selling like electronic mods or personal vaporizers, whatever you want to call them. This would be the sort of thing that you see on the shelf. It's that sort of good quality. And obviously I've had it now for
maybe a month, something like that. I don't know what the long term or the longevity of it is going to be, but you know, from a month's worth of use, I can tell it really is a very, very good quality device. It's been extremely well made. In terms of, you know, sort of functions, I mean, like, there's loads of stuff that you can sort of play about with there. And the only real one I didn't really sort of see much point to was the heat protection, which according to the manual is meant to preserve the flavour of your e-liquid when vaping at higher wattages. Now you have a range of 1 to 10, and in the manual it's talking about time in milliseconds times power output divided by time output and all this sort of caper, and it was a little bit sort of above my head, and I couldn't really work out what that was going on about, to be quite honest. But you know, I did sort of enable that feature, then start off at number 1 and then go to number 10, obviously having the vapes in between. And I couldn't really notice any difference. Maybe it's because I don't really sort of go above the 12 watts. Maybe it's for if you like to have really low ohm setups, but vaping at 20 watts, maybe you're going to notice a difference there. But the only way I can really sort of see it working, what I think the theory is behind it, is that it's going to sort of maybe detect when your coil is, or the coil is going to start running dry, then it starts reducing the wattage, so you're not getting that same sort of power output, which then sort of defeats the point, I thought, anyway. But I may be completely wrong there, but that's what I think the theory is possibly behind it anyway. But I think most people, if they set it at 20 watts, they want to have a constant sort of 20 watts vaping experience, rather than it sort of reducing over that time, because obviously if you're going to be vaping those sort of wattages, then you're going to be doing the older tip method if you're using something like a Genesis atomizer, for example. But like I said, all I can say is that I couldn't notice any difference between setting number 1 and setting number 10, or anything in between either. But if you are a person who likes vaping at the higher wattages, then it may be something that you notice a difference, but I didn't with the setup that I normally sort of vape with anyway. But you know, it tells you how much battery life you've got remaining, it tells you the resistance of your atomizer. You can change the brightness of the display. Now you can either have it quite sort of dim or quite bright. What else can you do on there? I can't think now. I'm having a brain fart. It's gone completely blank, which is very annoying. But you know, as you saw in the close-up shots, you know, I went through pretty much everything that you could possibly change on it. And you know, there are loads of different settings there. So if you wanted to, you can sort of play around to your heart's content. Now, obviously, these days you have things like the DNA 20 devices. They tend to be more like your, I think there's a couple of tube mods out, but they tend to be more like your box mods. But the DNA 20 board is basically a little board that you can buy from Evolve, and it gives you a range. I think is it 5 watts to 20 watts, and basically for sort of people who like to sort of make up their own devices at home. A lot of more sort of established modders are incorporating. I can't see who can talk today. More established modders are incorporating them into their sort of devices and that as well now. Now the DNA 20 board is great because it gives you all the information on screen. You don't have to sort of worry about sort of going into menu systems. All you've got is an up button and a down button, and that increases or decreases your wattage. You just press up a few times, get to the wattage that you want, and that's it. You don't really have to sort of touch it again. If you want to know the resistance, you just got to go like that. If you want to know how much battery life you've got left, you just go like that and just sort of look at it, and it's all there for you. Whereas with this, you know, you do have to go into the menu system. You do have to sort of click a few buttons to get that same sort of same information. However, where this really does trump things like the DNA 20 though is the battery life, because I find with my DNA 20 devices, you know, even with an 18650 battery, like it just goes through it like nobody's business. You know, you're vaping away on it, and then sort of what seems to be only like an hour or so later, your battery's almost dead. Whereas with this, you know, the 18500 battery, you know, I'm probably going through, you know, 1.5 to 2 batteries a day, which for a variable wattage device I think is pretty good. Now, when the battery starts getting a little bit too low, you do notice on the screen you get these 2 little sort of flashing dots alternating between themselves. which according to the manual is basically saying it's trying its best to maintain that wattage setting, but you may not necessarily be hitting the spot sort of thing. But I only really ever notice that when it's getting really close to the end of the battery life, once the battery starts reading around sort of 3.2 volts. And obviously I have this set to cut off at 3 volts. And normally when I see those little flashing dots, within sort of 10-15 minutes, you know, the batteries are cut out anyway by then, so, you know, not too much of a hassle at all really. So, you know, battery life, I think it's pretty good for battery life. You know, for me being a fairly sort of moderate to fairly heavy-ish vapour, I'm not a chain vapour by any means, but I'm definitely not light vapour, let's put it that way. So for me to go through 1.5 to 2 of those 18500 batteries with a variable wattage device, you know, I think that's pretty good. Okay, so, you know, if we're going to do a little checklist, you know, it looks great. The 18500 version, for me, I think is a perfect size. The 18650 version, I've not seen it, but obviously I'm going to imagine it's probably going to add on another, I would have thought a minimum of sort of 10 to 15 millimeters, so it's going to make it a little bit longer, and I think it would be a little bit too long then. The 18500 version, the size of it, you know, is pretty much spot on with him. Like, I'm holding that in my hand there, you can't see any of the actual Pipeline Pro. I have got big hands, bear in mind, and all you can see is the actual atomizer sticking out the end now. So size-wise, it's a really nice size. Looks-wise, absolutely fantastic. It's got a great finish on it. Like I said, the way the screen's been built into the body, again, very neat and tidy, looks very professional. You've got the flat top on there, you've got a really nice action button, a nice sort of low profile. You've got a ton and tons of different features in there. You can go in there and sort of customise things to your own sort of personal preference. So everything's like a really big sort of tick or big thumbs up. But what lets it down though is the 510 connector. Now, out of all the atomizers I've tried, I think it's the Scrape leaves, you know, I could probably get a fag paper and put it in there, so it's not too bad with the Scrape. The Tayfun GT is the same as well. You can, you know, just get a very sort of thin gap there. But every other atomizer I've tried, and hopefully you could sort of see what I was referring to in the close-up shots, every other atomizer I've tried, you know, does tend to leave quite a hefty gap, which if you don't like gaps, you know, it's a really big letdown. Some are not quite as bad as others, but, you know, I've got some atomizers where literally, you know, it's probably around maybe a 1.5 to 2 millimeter gap, so it just doesn't look particularly nice, you know. And to have a really excellent quality device like this with the flat top, so you should be able to get everything nice and sitting flush, no gaps whatsoever, and I think it's a real shame. So you could definitely do with either sinking the actual centre pin down, maybe just 1 millimeter, something like that, or making it a adjustable centre pin, either a manually adjusted one with a screw, or preferably a sort of sprung-loaded centre pin. And then I think, you know, for me, based on what I like, you know, I like my tube mods, and this is very similar to a tube mod, because it's obviously tube shaped, and with the flat top, you know, it really would be an ideal vaping device. So it's not just a little thing like that, but it's let it down quite a lot for me personally. Other people may not give a toss about having a little gap there, but like I said, for me personally, you know, it's a bit of a letdown. But you know, if you are not fussed about gaps and you want an extremely good quality variable wattage device, then you know, I can really highly recommend it. It's been quite impressive, really. Just the actual build quality of it, you know, really is superb. Just like a very sort of professionally made device, and obviously made in Germany. So like that, was it the advert Vorsprung Deutsch Technique? I don't know what that actually means, but they use it on the, I think it's the BMW or Volkswagen ad, so it obviously must be meaning something quite good anyway. Not too sure what else I can really tell you about it. You know, if you fancy trying that for yourself, go along to www.pipeline-store.co.uk. Thank you very much for watching. Also come along and visit my website at www.e-cigreviews.com. That's e-cig-reviews.com. Cheers guys, happy vaping. See you later.